Well, as of right now, it's just you and me, and then we have Bob and Carol in Mississippi are joining us online.
Oh,
So
what happened to the other girls?
today, I don't know.
Oh,
I'm not sure. We'll see. Sometimes we got people coming in late, and sometimes,
of course.
yeah. So,
Okay.
well, let's go back to your question was between, the difference between atheist and agnostic. So, an agnostic says, I don't know if there is a God or not. So, they're not a person that does, they're not calling themselves a person of faith.
Yeah.
They're saying, I don't know enough to have faith or not,
Okay,
you know? But an atheist says, no, there's no God. All of the evidence points to the contrary. And so they'll argue and say there is no God. Now, usually what they're arguing against is not necessarily, they're not necessarily arguing against the existence of God. They're arguing against the arguments for the existence of God, if that makes sense. They're arguing against the rationale that people have used to be believers. And they're looking at all of their rationale for believing, and they're saying that's irrational, or they're disagreeing with the conclusions that the person of faith is coming to.
okay.
Does that clear it up,
Well, I
or does
know
that
what
make it
you're
muddier?
saying. I hope he,
You're not sure where he's
yeah.
at? Mm-hmm.
Which
Now, I think what I can, if I'm describing my own faith, I can say within my faith, within all of the things that I've used to come to the conclusions that I have, the conclusion that I want to have faith, that there is a God, within that, I have to acknowledge that there is part of me that is agnostic, because I can't prove it to you. I cannot prove to you that God exists. I can give you my experience. I can tell you maybe some of the logic that I would use to come to that conclusion, but I can't be like, see, he's right here. Here's God.
Do
you
we
know?
all have questions?
Yes.
Even
So
though we're believers, that doesn't mean that we don't have questions.
correct. So in a way, we have something in common with the agnostic, and we say, yeah, I don't know either.
Hello.
Hi, I'm so sorry.
And so we say, I don't know, but I hope,
Well,
and I have faith that it's true. We're talking about the difference between agnostic and atheist.
Oh, okay.
One says, I don't know. The agnostic says, I don't know. And the atheist says, no, there is no God.
okay.
Right. It's the atheist. Yeah, I don't know, like, if you're going to have a conversation with somebody. I mean, where I would go is I would ask them, tell me what's in your mind, and tell me, how are you processing things to come to the conclusions that you have? And some people might say, well, there's different arguments that people would use. One of the arguments that you hear a lot of is people will say, well, I don't believe in a God, because if a God did exist, then this world would look different. It wouldn't look like it does. And they'll cite things like, they'll cite all types of things from it seems wrong that bad things happen when there's nothing to explain why they happen. You know, why would a baby be born with a horrible disease and suffer and die and just have an existence of suffering and that's it? That's not fair. Or you know, I've heard Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist that's kind of popular and on TV and the internet a lot. He when he hears people say, well, there's so much order in the universe, there has to be someone who, or a being that organized this, that made it make sense. And I've heard him cite things like, well, if you look at in this part of the sky with a telescope, you can see there in some places there are galaxies that are colliding with one another. So we worry about the end, you know, we worry about an asteroid hitting the Earth or something like that. And he says you can see it, that there are entire galaxies that are crushing into each other. So there's this what's the point of that? Like where's the order in that? Mm-hmm. That seems chaotic and pointless.
Yeah.
But you know, those are just some of the arguments that are used. Some people just dislike the arguments that are used for the existence of God, and they say, I just can't buy into any of those arguments, you know? So
It's going to be a tough road for me.
I mean, a lot, our faith, there's probably a reason why when Jesus gives the parable of one of the parables of faith, he says it's the size of a mustard seed. Faith is insignificant. It's almost nothing. That's the difference between faith and no faith, is the difference between no mustard seed and one mustard seed. And it's a small difference that makes a lot of difference, is kind of what his point is in the teaching. So where I get my mustard seed faith from is I say, I understand that life is beautiful and terrifying, that it is full of love and full of hate, that it is it looks orderly and makes sense and at the same time is chaotic. I can see that. I can observe that. But overall, I'm still like overwhelmed by the miracle that I exist, that I'm here, that all of this stuff is here instead of not. And as humans, we are always looking for the origins of things. So we ask ourselves, well, where did all this come from? So for this life that really is very awe-inspiring and amazing, even though there's challenges, it is there's something to it. There's some reason, or there's some source of that, and that's what I'm curious about and interested in, and that's where I think all the good stuff comes from. There's a lot of the things that we experience in life it's just sowing and reaping. It's just because of the way that the universe works. Every action causes an equal and opposite reaction. So there's this law of physics that is like a physical law, but also like we would say a moral law, and you can see, you can live a better life by putting efforts into good and positive things, and people that don't have that, I think, tend to have an experience of life that's like not as good. I mean, they may have smiles on their faces, but I don't necessarily think that that's what I would prefer. I would prefer a clean conscience and doing things the right way, you know?
You told me once before when we spoke about, we're talking about my grandson, who's not quite with the faith yet, but we've argued about it, and I'm going to see him this week. But you said to me, we were talking about trust at the time, and he said, I can't do that. I'm a scientist. You said use the word faith instead, and I think that helps a little bit.
This is the thing. If you ask somebody who says what they really rely on for their understanding of existence is science, that's what they rely on. And I think one of the conversations to have about science is, isn't it interesting how science is motivated by the unknown and is motivated by curiosity and is motivated to go on these searches to find answers, believing that they will find some kind of an answer, you know? So in some ways they do trust. A scientist has a lot of trust and a lot of faith in the process, that they will get results that can be verified and things like that. Now, I guess you could ask, is there anything in your life that you cannot verify? That you cannot verify with evidence? Is there anything in your life experience that you cannot gauge with scientific explanation? And some of those things would be like, I mean, there's studies on everything. I mean, one of the things that's kind of a question is how do you measure love? How can you prove to me that you love somebody? Or can you prove to me the degree with which you love somebody or don't love somebody? Can you prove to me that you have this type of love or that type of love for one person or another? And the thing about like the human emotion of love that is one of the biggest motivators for us, or one of the biggest experiences in life that we try to hold on to and try to and think is precious. It's one of the things that we would say really makes us human is our experience of love. So with that, I guess maybe in a conversation with that, it would be interesting to hear how a person who's purely scientific, how would they explain love according to how they understand it, according to science, you know? Is it just a hormonal attraction between people? Is it like a psychological programming? Is it just like an animal instinct? I mean, what is that thing? You know? And really that's what, I mean, there's a reason why we sing the same song when the kids go to Sunday school every single week, because it's one of the most powerful theological statements. Wherever God is, wherever love is, God is there too. Because it's taken from 1 John, I think, that God is love. God is love. And there's something in that. You know, you could say, well, do you love? Do you love? Well, then you're having a God experience. Because that's what is most important to me, and where I think the source of everything comes from is love. So how did a few immeasurable particles, which did something and created an explosion and evolve over billions of years, how did that produce love? Is kind of the question. And so the person of faith says, we look at love as like the highest product of all of this in creation. If we were to take one thing out of life and hold on to it and get rid of the rest, we would hold on to love. That's what we would want. So we say that because that is the highest, probably it came from a love source. It didn't just come from dust, you know. So there is that, you know. There's arguments for everything. There really is, and I took apologetics in seminary, so you learn how to argue for the existence of God, and you argue for your faith. Well, this is the downside of it, though, is that you learn the basics of logic, and the thing that stuck in my mind is for every argument, for every logical argument, it starts with a presupposition. Every single one of them. You have to start from somewhere to create a logical argument. So when you're arguing with somebody, usually what you do is you start with something you can agree on. You would agree that, and so you start with this presupposition, and we agree on this thing. Now let's create an argument that will come back around to prove that that thing is right.
We absolutely love each other. We adore each other. Mm-hmm. That I know. Mm-hmm. So that's a start.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just, you know, I don't argue because I'm not really good at it. And I just say, you know, it makes totally no sense. My faith makes no sense. It can't be explained.
Right.
You know, and just real quick, it's like, if I was Jesus in heaven and God said to me, come to earth and die on a cross, I would be like, let's make another plan. Because you can't explain it. But it's just faith and love, you know, and maybe it's selfish because I'm unconditionally loved. And I can't explain it to you, and I can't argue with you about it.
But when you try to argue with somebody who's got a brain that's like that,
I can't.
He just mows me right down.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's why I say I can't argue.
Yeah.
I just can't argue with it.
So in apologetics, because you start with a presupposition, every argument does, the thing is, somebody who's skillful can win a debate on any topic. And you remember in debate class, one of the things that you would be taught is argue for this point of view. Now, if you're really good at debate, turn around and argue the other point of view.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
if you're really good at it,
yeah.
and what that tells me is, if you're skillful enough with logic, you can create or you can destroy any argument. Mm-hmm. If I come up with the absolute best argument for God, because it is an argument, someone else can come in and destroy it with a better argument. Mm-hmm. And then someone can destroy them with a better argument, but then somebody can come back and destroy them with a better argument. So the thing is, like, a lot of people do want to use logic to convince people to believe in God. And there's lots of books, there's courses, there's personalities, and there's people that are known for doing this, for logically arguing. And a lot of times what they're doing is that they are having arguments with people that are very scientifically minded, and they're trying to come at it from that direction. So I would say, I mean, I'm not opposed to anything that brings somebody to God. If it's an argument that makes you change the way that you think, and that's what brings you to God, that's fine, you know. But one of the things that I think is maybe more powerful than that is somebody's experience, because you can't argue with somebody's experience, you know. I mean, you can argue somebody's experience, but usually if somebody has experienced something, they can be convinced. You know, I've had experiences that make me convinced that not only do I love people and that people love one another, but I think there is a loving presence beyond us in this world. And I would say that's God. I would say that's where my love comes from, that I didn't come up with this on my own. And it's not just something that came out of my brain. It's not just something that was programmed into me, and it's not something that was passed on to me genetically. Those things may play some role in my experience of love, but that's where I'm coming from. Now, I also understand some people go through life and they don't have a good experience of love, or they've had no experience of love. So it might be harder, maybe it's harder to have a conversation with somebody like that. But ultimately, I think this is the biggest. Ultimately, your love for your grandson is absolutely, hands down, the most powerful argument for the existence of God than anything you can say or anything that you can consciously do. It's like this unconscious and powerful love that you have. That's the thing that's the closest to an experience of God's love that he's going to have. And so if he does have an experience of God's love, you know, maybe he'll ask, where's this coming from, you know?
You talk about a brain. Microsoft just gave him $18 million for, you know, he's got a brain.
All right.
And he's using it against me as much as we love each other. And it's very hard for me
Right.
to battle that. And that's what I feel it is. It's a battle between us.
Oh, that's yeah, because you want him so bad to be a Christian, and God is the one who makes me love you like I do, unconditionally.
Yes,
Boom.
yes, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, and I can't argue with you. You're way smarter than me. But God is the one that makes me love you like I do. That's how I love
Well,
my
you
grandson.
could, if you wanted to play around with him and his intellect, you could ask him. You could say, "Well, you understand a good debater can argue both sides. Can I hear your argument for the existence of God?"
Oh, I love
No,
that.
ask him. Tell him if you were, you know, if I had your brain and I was trying to convince you of the existence of God, what would I say? Use your brain to tell me.
Oh, I like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because and in some ways you look at C.S. Lewis is considered to be one of he's an intellectual who was agnostic or atheist, and it was in his arguments for atheism that he ended up becoming a believer. Mm-hmm. And he ended up becoming one of the biggest apologists for Christianity. So, now this is, I don't know if he's out of date. I mean, he's, but, he wrote books in the 1940s and 50s, I think, is most of when the stuff was written. But he converted himself. He was an intellectual who converted. They do exist.
Right, yeah.
Oh, I love that. I use that on my brother.
Yeah. If you're show me, I believe you're smart, and I would like to see you in action. Can you help me? If I was going to argue with somebody, help me come up with the best argument. And if they don't want to, then that's an interesting question. Why don't you want to? Are you afraid? Are you afraid of what you're going to discover?
Oh, I love that.
Hello.
Right.
Good morning. Early for next week.
Nice.
You okay?
Yeah,
That's
I'm
good.
fine.
Glad you're here.
Thanks.
Yes,
Half hour's better than none.
that's right. This is so, I love that. That is so good.
That's a good book, by the way.
Oh, good. We haven't gotten into it yet. We've been talking about the difference between agnostic and atheist,
Oh, okay.
and how to maybe speak to somebody. I'm more fascinated and intrigued by atheism and agnosticism than I am opposed to it. I'm very curious how people come up with these ideas, because the funny thing is, like, I think in a way we're all people of faith, and we all have our arguments, and our arguments may be solid, but I don't know that they're perfect, and just like that logic class or that apologetics class that tells you any argument comes up with a presupposition, what that means is we're all just starting from some place we want to start. How do you pick that? And this is what the scientific process is like. You start with a hypothesis. You start with, is this true? And then you go around it. But along with that is like a lot of assumptions that you should document, So any one of those and people are way smarter than I am, but at least I'm smart enough to kind of recognize these patterns that, like, this is why when it comes to politics, when it comes to physics or math, when it comes to anything that we use logic, it's a great tool, but there are other things that are at play in our processes that we may acknowledge and we may not acknowledge. I mean, you see this argued all the time. Like, we're going to pass a law. Why should we pass this law? So you're going to have people argue for and against, right? So there are reasonable concerns that are brought up by both parties, and so that's why hopefully we end up with some kind of compromise that helps or whatever. But in all the processes that we go through, it's like, I think coming out of COVID and coming out of the pandemic, I saw so many statements that were supposed to be based in science and logic and facts be presented one minute, and then completely the opposite presented another minute, and then completely different another, and then a totally different another. So it was just like, whatever the person wanted to say in the moment, it's more like they wanted to make a statement, or they wanted to make a decision, and so they needed some argument to back it up. And then something changed, so they needed to change the argument. But if you look back, the logical arguments do not coincide. You can't have both arguments. You know what I'm saying? So And we still disagree on everything. On absolutely everything. We cannot, because we're afraid if we do agree that we're going to end up doing what they want. So we can't agree with anything that they say at all. But I really did I came out of COVID thinking, like, I don't think I believe any study that's done on anything. We get studies all the time. A survey says, a study shows, and you know how it is. It's like, is drinking a glass of wine every day good for you? Yes. No. Yes. No. And it just depends on who did the study and when they did it. And it's like completely opposite. Is it good for you or not? No. Yes. It's like, so.
It makes them think, though.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's good.
the
The important thing.
Yeah. Okay.
There is also at play, when we read Richard Rohr's, I think it's Falling Upward. I don't know if we ever read that. If we did, it was a long time ago. But we've read other things of his. He talks about the first half and second half of life. And it's not exactly at the same time for everybody. Some people grow up earlier and some people grow up later. But there is the first half and second half of life. The first half is like establishing who you are and establishing your goals in life. And usually it comes with achievement and success, and it comes with acknowledgement from others. So you have, your place in society, and there's a way you view life in the first half, and it goes all the way from being a kid through school to your early adulthood, maybe family, career, and all that. Second half of life is when you kind of start to question all those things, and you start to kind of come to terms with eternity, and you're not as gung-ho about all those things. So maybe status is not so important anymore. Money's not so important. You start to shift into, well, it's really my relationships that are important, or it's a sense of calling or purpose or vocation in life that is not like a goal to achieve, but it's more like a direction that I feel pulled. So everybody goes through those types of things. The argument from logic, I think, fits a little bit more in the first half of life, because it helps you achieve your goals, understand your life, and all that kind of thing. It's almost like you're constructing a box, and then this box is your definition of life. The second half of life, oftentimes it comes with great disappointment and devastation, and all of your previous understandings about things start to fall apart. And you ask yourself, well, what am I left with if I'm questioning everything? And that's when faith really becomes something that can grow and come alive, but it may not happen until you've gone through that process of life. So, you might ask yourself, what was your faith like in your 20s, in your 50s, where you are now? Has that changed over time?
I think it's just the opposite.
Do you think it's in what way?
Growing up was not so great,
Okay.
for many reasons. But the second half has been absolutely phenomenal.
Right. Well, when I say falling apart, it's painful for a while, but what ends up happening is you end up finding what's really real. You end up connecting with something bigger than the box. So it ends up being better. Right. So some people have that breakthrough experience early on in their life. Maybe they have it when they're in their 20s or 30s. Other people, they may not have it until they're 60 or 80, you know? It might not. Some people never leave the first half of life. They never do. They, I mean, I would use the president of the United States right now, Donald Trump. He is a very driven person, and it's like only sleeps a certain amount of hours, and still at his age is just going nonstop. He's acting to me like somebody in the first half of life that's still trying to make a name for himself, to prove something, to gain something, to beat somebody. It's that, those are the types of motivators that I would say I see in him. And that's probably the case for anybody who's still at that age in life where you're, 80 years old and you're still basically doing the same thing that you were doing earlier in life. You're just smarter now or something. But you haven't really completely changed the way that you approach life. So Richard Rohr's talking about people who have this turnaround experience where it's like, I used to be this way, but now I'm a completely different person. I used to be a person of logic and answers and goals, and I had this thing that I was going to present to the world and to make my mark. Second half of life says, my ego is destroyed, but I'm still here, whoever that is, and who I really am is just now
But doesn't that
happening.
happen when you become a Christian?
That's one of the ways that it can happen. Yeah, that's like when the Apostle Paul became a Christian, totally turned around and became something else. And it's not the same as like playing for the other team, because it's fundamentally he became a different person. And usually it's because we're broken. Usually because it is whatever we built was broken. Ultimately, what we discover is that there is a me that's inside all this time that was always here and still here, but it's a more genuine, it's more like who I really am. And this is why oftentimes you see grandparents and grandchildren having more in common and playing with one another, because in some ways they're more alike than the generation in between. The person in between is still in the first half of life, and they have responsibilities, and they're like meeting their goals and deadlines, and it's all business. And it's like the kids and the old folks are like playing games and having fun, and that's because the young one hasn't gotten far along enough to be consumed with the pressures of life to be conformed, and the old person has been destroyed by life, and the only thing they have left is like, I don't know, their little kid inside is still there. So it's like you can play with your kid because you're in the second half of life and they haven't got to the first half of life yet. So you've got that in common. So that's, well, let's jump into our book before and before I forget, we will not meet next week.
what I thought.
It is the day before Thanksgiving. I'm going to be out of town, but we will start back up the week after.
Okay.
So no Bible study next week, the day before Thanksgiving, but we'll come back and continue the week after that.
I don't know when I'm coming back.
2, 3. The next time we'll meet will be December the 3rd.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe, okay. Okay.
But we'll still be in this book, so.
I'll still be out there arguing with.
Yes, yes. All right, so we are in the introduction, and we're on, it's page Roman numeral 14, XIV. It's not just about Christmas, that's the subtitle. See if we can get out of this introduction. Speed through this introduction. What are we hoping for? Really, Advent is about who, not what. It's about who, not what. So it's not the advent of Christmas. It's the advent of the Messiah. It's the coming of the Christ. It's not the coming of the holiday. So that's important to remember. We may say it. I may say, we're in our 4-week countdown to Christmas. Well, actually, we're in our 4-week countdown to Jesus. That's a better way to say it. And it's just the season that we're in. If we jump forward a few paragraphs this is the page after this, right in the middle. I'm pretty sure that putting "get ready to meet your God" on a sign in front of your church is not an effective or loving way to preach the good news to your neighbors, but it isn't a bad summary of what Advent is about. All right, that's a really good line here, because this kind of shows us one of the elements of Advent that we might not think about. All right, so get ready to meet your God. That's one of the, there's this variety of emotions that we go through during the Advent season. So it's a preparation, so whatever feelings come with that. It's an anticipation, it's hopefulness, it's excitement. But then another aspect of this is there might be a little bit of trepidation. There might be a little bit of, I'm going to meet my God. So this would be like, if you are going on a date with somebody that you really like, and you know them a little bit, let's say you're going on your second date, right? So you know it's exciting, and you're hopeful, and there's all those feelings, but then there's also probably some anxiety too, because you want it to work out, you want them to like you, you're still getting to know each other. So in a way, get ready to meet your God. This is something that we will all experience. We are people of faith right now. We believe and we hope in God. We may have had some experiences where we're really close to God, or we feel close to God. But there will come a moment where we're really, really going to meet God. And this is like the phrases that you see in the scriptures, like come face to face. So what does God's face really look like? What does God's voice really sound like? How is the touch of God on our shoulder, an embrace? What's that feel like? So there's this reality that we haven't yet experienced. And Advent is telling us there's going to be a real thing happen. A real thing is going to happen. Now, some of these things might be that we experience a new type of reality during the Advent season that's bigger and better and closer. We feel closer to God than we ever have. But always we should have in the back of our minds, there's going to be something even bigger. And there's going to be something even bigger than that. And it's like God is so big and beyond that we will eternally be having new and bigger revelations of what God is like. So get ready to meet your God. If we put that on our sign out front, that sounds like a threat a little bit. You know what I'm saying? In a way. If somebody tells me, get ready to meet your God, I'll be like, sweet, I'm ready. But if you tell somebody else get ready to meet your God, that's almost like, well, that means the end of something, doesn't it? That means something big is going to change. That means you're not going to be the same. So it's like, get ready to meet your God and get ready to say goodbye to something, right? So that's the other part about Advent, is like, if we really do experience Jesus, if we really do have a God encounter, what always happens is that another part of us dies. Another part of us comes alive, but another part of us dies. And that's the weird part of, that's exciting. I'm excited about the new thing, but I'm a little afraid of what I'm going to lose this time. You know?
I guess I could say I'm upset about people. So many people I know, including a bunch of my friends are Catholic, we made in God's image, and they all think facial. They're talking about it spiritually, not facially, but a lot of them don't think that far, including me for a while.
Yeah.
You know,
Like God's face? Is that what you mean?
I forget how it's put in the Bible, biblically.
There is one that says we will see him face to face.
No, that's not the one.
Not the one.
This is, we're made in the image of God.
We're made it, okay, in God's likeness.
Face, okay.
In-
That's not what they're talking about, the face. They're talking about we're going to be like him spiritually.
Right. Well, being made in the image of God is like from Genesis. That's the creation story. So Adam and Eve were made in the image of God. So that's where it comes from, and it might come up in other places in the Bible too. But the first time it comes up is in the book of Genesis. So it says that we made them, male and female, in our image.
Okay.
Yeah, and strangely, the language in Genesis is plural. God is identifying as we. And the thought is that's kind of like what used to happen in the king's court. The king would say we, meaning the king and the king's court. We make a declaration that there's no separation between the king and the king's court. So we'd say there's no separation between God and God's kingdom or God and God's reality. So it's we. So we make this male and female. We make you in our image. In our image and likeness. So there is this thing that we are like God. And that comes up in other places within the scriptures, that we are like God. Though actually the word Christian, my understanding is the word Christian means little Christ.
Means what?
Little Christ.
Okay.
So if you're a Christian, you're like a baby Jesus. You're like a Christ, a young, small version of Christ. Just like a baby is a small version of an adult. We're this little version. So we're still your baby. You know, my child. When my child is born, the child is in my likeness, but at the same time, he's not 6'2". You know.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but yeah, there is, we share something with God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, what page do you want?
Oh, here we go. It's XX.
Yeah, I'm skipping pretty fast.
Okay.
So
No,
the
XV, I'm sorry. XV. So where are we now?
we're still on XV.
Okay.
We are in the
Here we go.
we're at the paragraph that says some Roman Catholic teachers.
I can't read that.
Okay, here, let me see. Let me find it.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm skipping around a lot, so this statement here, when we get ready to meet our Maker, or when we get ready to meet our God, it is this, like this says here, it is seriousness mixed with awe. So it's a mixture of things. And if we go down a couple sentences, Jesus Christ in history, mystery, and majesty, that's what we experience in Advent. So we're experiencing the historical Jesus literally born as a baby in the Middle East to this family. That's the historical. And there is historical evidence of the person of Jesus, just in case anybody's asking. Outside of the Bible, there's historical evidence for the person of Jesus. But also, it's Jesus. Not only are we celebrating the historical Jesus that lived 2,000 and something years ago, but we're celebrating the Jesus that is a mystery. And that's the mystery of Jesus being human and Jesus being divine, Jesus being the divine somehow. And then there is the majesty, which is the majesty, we use that to describe like the glory or the awe of all of this. The majesty it's the king, but the king carries this aura and this glory and that kind of a thing. It's kind of where the rubber meets the road is an awesome thing. So it's historical, it's mysterious and spiritual that we don't understand, but it's majestic as well, where those things come together. And I mean, if you look at you can look at the Christian church and say, oh, that's just a political endeavor of the last 2,000 years. Because there was a lot of politics involved in the church. The church ran ran that part of the world for a long time. They were very powerful. But isn't it strange and majestic that one single person and their message ended up carrying on for all this time? I mean, I heard about the story for the first time at some point in my life. It was passed on to me by one person telling another person, telling another person, telling another person. We all got this through the grapevine, so to speak, right?
Yep.
We're told about something that happened in history. I wasn't there, and I have not personally ever been to that geographical location. So what do I know? All I know is what people are telling me and what every generation after the other is telling. And it's like, if something is not worth telling or not worth sharing or is not a big deal, we forget about it. You know, how many times have we been sharing with friends and somebody tells a story like, oh my God, I completely forgot about that. And so it wasn't something that we think about. There's other things that I can remember that are like, I really remember that. Like my first car, I remember I didn't forget anything about my first car. That's a big thing for me, you know? But what did I go eat for dinner the day after I bought my first car? Who knows? Who knows?
That's like in the Bible where the disciples, they said, it was like, just let him be. If this thing's going to die out, it'll die out.
Right.
And
right.
it didn't.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So here we are.
Right.
Yeah.
I did all the work already, Michael.
I did those.
You came all the way here. Oh, did you do those?
Yeah, I did it yesterday, but I just get a jump on it. You know?
Oh, thank
So,
you.
You probably wouldn't need that many.
I just had a little extra time this morning, so I put them to the side. Yeah, we're having the floor shampooed, so all the chairs got moved to the
Want me
side.
to put these up?
They're coming in.
Can you say a little-
The choir, the ladies are coming tonight to sing.
Oh, good.
So after that's done, and the band is going to practice, so I'll move it tonight when that's
Like a
done.
lot. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks
If
for
you wanna
coming.
come by tomorrow, tell Marshall, she'll let me know.
Okay,
I can come by and do it tomorrow.
appreciate it.
I try.
All right, we got 2 minutes to finish the introduction.
Okay.
All right. All right, this describes those three things as the Messiah's birth in history, our present day experience in mystery, and the return, Jesus returned to us in majesty. So that's kind of like the big party at the end, the culmination where everything is revealed. All right, a very short history of Advent. It's a 4-week fast that started in around 600 AD. So it started as a fasting because a lot of these, they're festivals, they're feasts, they're feast days. So it's preparation for lots of food and parties and things like that. And back in the day, we have to think like they didn't have frozen meals. In the 600s, it's like if you're having a feast day, everybody's doing all the extra work so everybody can take off and not work on this day when we all
But is that the
eat
same?
food and stuff like that.
Is it 4-week fast before Easter?
There is a fast before Easter that's Lent, and that's it's 40 days.
That's right. It's
40 days, not counting Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah. This is 4 weeks. This is where it came from historically. So the church, the disciples were not celebrating Advent. It didn't exist. So it's not until 6 centuries later that the Catholic Church, well, at the time, the church hadn't split yet. The church in 600 AD started celebrating Advent with this fast. And then, so it began as an extended fast to get ready. So its focus is on waiting and preparation. We did mention that Advent is looking at both the first coming of Jesus and the second coming of Jesus. The first time Jesus shows up as a baby in a manger, and the second time Jesus shows up as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords in the clouds of glory, bringing earth to its culmination where there's a new heaven and a new earth. That's the second Advent. And so when we celebrate Christmas, we're also celebrating the second coming of Jesus. And we just stick with the baby Jesus in the manger. But in a big way, it is, if he came once, he'll come again. And this is the part, I like this. This came to me a long time ago and stuck with me. So I grew up in a church that had the end days figured out. It was all figured out, right? And they would have these seminars, and they still do have these seminars on a regular basis, where they look at prophecies about the end of the world, and they say, this is what it's going to be like. And they talk about, if you look at this place in the Bible, and this place in the Bible, and this place in the Bible, you can see we're getting really close, and yada, yada, right? So there's this sense that we know what's going to happen, and we know what it's going to be like. So that's what I grew up with. There's a scripture that says he'll come in the clouds of glory, but it says the cloud will appear as a man's hand or something like that. So it's this idea.
Do they tell you when?
No. Well, they did, and then they were wrong, so they changed it. Yeah, that's what happened. So a cloud as a man's hand is like if you put your hand up like this, and you compare it to the cloud that's up there, that's a small cloud if you think about it. The size of my hand, according to where my eyes are, that's a small cloud. That's how it's going to start. So I remember as a kid, I see a little cloud, and I'm like, oh, is that the one? Let me watch for a while. Oh no, that's not it. Oh wait, maybe it's that one. So in a way,
And you're normal?
Pardon? Yeah.
And you're normal today?
Well, I figured that stuff out. I was like, okay, I don't know. So this idea that we've got it figured out, look for the clues, be ready, all that kind of thing, this emphasis on the second coming, it hit me one day. And what hit me is, did they know what the first coming of Jesus was going to be like? Did they imagine a baby in a manger? No, they were looking for a king. They were looking for a warrior. They were looking for a high priest. They were looking for that person, even Jesus' disciples were like, will you now return the kingdom to Israel, when Jesus is like ascending to heaven? And Jesus is like, no, this is not what you think. So we were so off. They were expecting a Messiah. They were expecting a person, a regular person, but kind of like a super heroic, strong, bold, a conqueror. That's what they're expecting, like King David, all right? That's where this Messiah idea comes from. And when it comes as an innocent little baby that ends up being an itinerant preacher and gathering a crowd with mostly poor people, disturbing the authorities, religious and political, and then being killed, raising again, and then disappearing and unleashing the Holy Spirit, that's not what anybody expected. It doesn't matter. You can go back and look at the prophecies. It's real vague. Born of a young woman, virgin, okay. Slain as a lamb, okay, that can match but it's like nobody knew. It wasn't until later that first generation, second generation, they're like, oh my God, was that God? Because at the time, if they had thought that, they would have passed out. They would have been blown away. They would have been terrified or something like that. It's later on, they're like, oh my God, that was God. So if we were so caught off guard and nobody knew, and it ended up being something we didn't think, what's the second coming going to be like? Maybe it's going to be the same way. Not going to come the way the scriptures, the scriptures said it, but the scriptures are pointing toward a reality that we cannot fathom. So there is a culmination of all things. There is an ultimate judgment of good and evil. There is a reward, a gracious reward or inheritance we all receive in eternal life and love of God. But how it's going to happen and when it's going to happen, I don't know. Jesus says treat it like it's soon. Act as if it's happening tomorrow.
Or 10,000 years from now.
Right.
Or 10,000 years from now. Yeah. But the most of what we see in the New Testament is they say don't relax. Don't rest. Actually, the text from this Sunday was about people who weren't working and they were eating the bread that the workers were creating. And Apostle Paul said to say, if they don't work, they don't eat. That's the rule. And somehow, because they thought Jesus was coming back, they decided, oh, we don't have to work because we're not going to work in heaven. So I'm just going to start now because it might be tomorrow, And Paul is like, okay, that's not what I said. That's not what I meant. So yes, be ready in your heart with your decision making. Be ready, but also live as if you have your entire life ahead of you, and it won't happen. So these are like the events we're talking about. How Jesus breaks into reality, and then also how everything culminates. That's what Christmas is about. And it's so silly what we get caught up in. We get caught up in presents are fun and decorations are awesome, and I love the music and the excitement is great that we're all, doing this thing. But the culmination of reality is a little bit more exciting than presents. It is good to take a break and enjoy presents, but Advent is about not the coming of your presents. The Advent is about the coming of the greatest present of all, which is the reality of Jesus. Let's see. Is it possible for us to finish here? We got 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh. Wow.
It's fine because you know what? We're not putting any big hurry.
I just don't want to be in April and still working on the Advent book.
Right.
Wow, that's a lot of pages. All right. So what I'm going to have to do, let me get back to where I was. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to go through all of my underlined stuff, and I'm just going to have to pick some high points. Wow, goodness. Okay, there we go. So this is where we're leaving off here. All right. We're reading a book about Advent, and we're still kind of, in a way, we're doing the stuff before the book about the stuff before the real, we kind of have an Advent before the Advent book. All right, so we didn't start with a song today, so let's end with not our ending song, but this one here.
Oh, well,
Thank you.
Lord, the light of your love is shining in the midst of the darkness shining. Jesus, light of the world, shine upon us. Set us free by the truth you now bring us. Shine on me. Shine on me. Shine, Jesus, shine. Fill this land with the Father's glory. Blaze, Spirit, blaze. Set our hearts on fire. Flow, river, flow. Flood the nations with grace and mercy. Send forth your word, Lord, and let there be light. Lord, I come to your awesome presence, from the shadows into your radiance. By the blood I may enter your brightness. Search me, try me, consume all my darkness. Shine on me. Shine on me. Shine, Jesus, shine. Fill this land with the Father's glory. Blaze, Spirit, blaze. Set our hearts on fire. Flow, river, flow. Flood the nations with grace and mercy. Send forth your word, Lord, and let there be light. As we gaze on your kindly brightness, so our faces display your likeness, ever changing from glory to glory. Mirrored here, may our lives tell your story. Shine on me. Shine on me. Shine, Jesus, shine. Fill this land with the Father's glory.